Welcome to Monster Chats, presented by Monster VoIP, where we share the tools, methods, and best practices that business leaders use to build new connections, strengthen relationships, and impact sales in organizations of all shapes and sizes. If you have any questions that come up during today's episode, please text them to 424-378-6966. Please welcome the founder of Monster VoIP, your host, Colin Mitchell.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking with Richard Birt of Rytepath. Richard and I are going to be talking about the new normal of digital marketing and advertising, big data, and everything in between. I'm Colin Mitchell, the host of Monster Chats and your founder of Monster VoIP. Richard Birt is the godfather of big data and the founder of Rytepath. Rytepath is a market leader in deterministic data, marketing to consumers who are in market, researching products in real time. They deploy advanced social, mobile, and digital listening and reconnect customers via email and mobile interaction in real time. They monitor billions of records daily. Richard, thanks so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me on, Colin.
Yeah, so Richard, tell us, before we dig into the topics that we're going to be talking about today, which are the consumer mindset in the current situation with the coronavirus, how the rich are going to shift their buying power, the economic impacts of coronavirus, and what marketers can do to counterbalance that. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so I started my company 4 years ago. And it was really based on being a disruptive technology. So I came out of the demographic database world. My big claim to fame is when I was at MBA school in 1980, I studied under a professor that wrote the first book on customer segmentation. So I was really fascinated by this, asked him to do a student research project as part of my MBA. We ended up building the FICO score. And so I ended up selling that, he did, to TRW. I got a job there basically building out the business credit file, the real estate file, and the consumer credit file.
Wow.
So out of that experience, I was really the first person that was involved with building these mass scale databases on consumers around demographics and on business side firmographics. So I could have never planned to have a career that's really lasted 40 years, but I really consider kind of the father or could be grandfather now of big data. And so I've worked now with about 500 different clients, helping them build their customer databases, showed them how to apply demographics and insights to these databases, and then showed them how to develop omni-channel strategies. But what I saw was in the marketplace is that everybody did the same. It was taking my database of customers. I over-index graphic attribute. So it could be that I'm a yoga studio, I run hot yoga, my market, and that's what I over. Not every woman that's 24 to 34-year-old does yoga. Not every woman that does yoga does hot yoga. So when you build media plans off of this, there was always this assumed waste. So in advertising, we always had this standard notion that 50% of my ad spend is wasted. So what I thought out is there a way that I could see people showing intent through two vehicles? One, them researching terms on the internet and hitting retargeting terms. And then two, did my mobile phone. So in this analogy of the hot yoga studio, what I'm most interested in is somebody who's actually out on the internet, or somebody that I know that their phone goes to a hot yoga studio 6 times a week. Now I'm getting people that are showing affinity and intent. So it's a much different way of looking at the end consumer. And it's what we call in-market behavior, people that have a higher probability to buy because we know that they're in the category and they're researching options.
Wow. Now, is there any, is there any limitations in that? Like what type
No.
of, interesting.
Yeah, please. Sorry.
Yeah. So, this applies to basically any type of business, any sort of consumer behavior that can be tracked to then not be wasting that 50% of the ad budget when you have a more targeted audience.
To a fish finder. What we do is we use very sophisticated keywords that we enable through AI. And then as people hit these terms on 5 ad networks, LinkedIn, Twitter, we see these people that are showing buyer intent, and then we can also look in Instagram and get people that like things or members of certain brands. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we can go pretty much across any platform.
Mm. So tell me, let's go back a second, right? So from being the godfather and part of creating the FICO score, which I'm sure you probably never imagined would be used as widely as it is today, to starting Rytepath. Fill in the blanks there a little bit for us.
Yeah, so I've had kind of 3 levels of career development. In the early days, I was responsible for building out the TRW credit file system. Mm-hmm. In the 90s, everything went to internal database builds. And that was a result of Oracle coming out with their database product and IBM coming out with their database product. So in the 90s, I was mostly working with clients inside, building their customer databases. Mm-hmm. So some of the clients that I worked with were Nike, Ferrari, Dell, Apple during those years. Mm-hmm. And then in the 2000s, everything shifted to the internet, where people were actually showing outward demand. So you didn't have to use an internal database to cultivate demand. And so I was literally the first person who met those guys at 2 months into their experiment, and put up the first 2 corporate sites, one for EA, another one for Pink, the division of Victoria's Secret. Mm-hmm. So I was on Facebook for 6 years before it was made public.
Oh, wow.
So I had a very unique situation of watching all the digital stuff develop. In 2008, I built one of the first digital demand side platforms for an ad agency. So I was involved with programmatic from the very beginning. So we used media math to build that. So I've been involved with in the last 20 years around pretty much every significant development around Facebook and programmatic buying. The problem, to be honest with you, Colin, is that it worked perfectly until the bots showed up. Mm. And what happened is that in the last 4 years, 40 to 60% of the traffic is fake. So wow. One of the things that we did is that we match back to emails. So we know that it's a 3x authenticated email, and that's what the ad networks provide back to us, is the email they have on file. If it matches our end, we know that it's a valid individual, then we go ahead and market to those people.
Wow, let's take a step back for a second. So 40 to 60% of the traffic is fake due to bots?
Yeah, and click farms.
Wow, that's a huge number.
Yeah, in fact, take it. And I say this to Google click fraud. They say that represent upwards to $25 billion a year.
Wow.
It's really incredible. And we see this, by the way, in our networks because we only match 50 to 60% of the time on the traffic.
Right.
So we're assuming that if we don't match, that the likelihood it is.
That's incredible. Wow. So you've had quite a journey.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. You know, the thing is that in my space, I've had the benefit that every year, the ability to use statistical tools, AI tools, hold vast amounts of data, it increases with every year. When I started, literally, and I hate to date myself, is that I worked in an environment with 360 mainframes where everything was being done using punch cards, air conditioner floors. And now pretty much, you know, with the cloud and a PC, I could replicate that data center. So hard for most people to recognize that over a 4-decade period, just the technology's gotten so much better. Biggest thing for us has been the advent of the cloud. That's really what allows us to do a lot of things that we do on a daily basis.
Right, right. So tell me, what are you guys seeing in the consumer mindset shifting since all the coronavirus, pandemic has started?
Well, I'm going to couple general statements.
Okay.
And so one is that all of the traditional demographic databases that exist today are going to have to be reset. And that includes the FICO score. So we have never experienced this economic downturn that we're in right now. And it's going to be extremely brutal. And for people to move forward, they're going to have to basically, it was all the data that existed pre-coronavirus, which you can throw out. And now it's the new norm of what does America really look like today?
Wow.
Because it's, and I say this to you, it's a very frightening thing to say this, but FICO was never set up to create expansionary credit to people that deserved it. So you're going to have a huge reset in the financial markets around credit worthiness and what it means to, and it's going to come down in the next 6 months on who's still working and who isn't working. And this is affecting a lot of people. You know, I look at some really rock star people that I know in the advertising space that are all getting laid off. You know, advertising in my space is contracting at a rate of 30 to 40%. I know of an agency in Orange County that had 30 clients all went on pause.
Wow.
They had a staff of 60 people. I don't know if they're going to retain those or what they're going to do. So largely, and I say this to you relative to credit worthiness and demographics, whatever you knew about America, it all changed in March.
And tell me what would to talk about a reset, right? So, the demographic and the database prior to coronavirus, and then a reset. What does a reset look like?
So I think that there's going to be 3 things that are going to happen at a financial basis. One is that if you had historically good credit and had a reasonable amount that was active, they're going to have to reevaluate you relative to the lifetime value of what you contributed to that bank. So if you were actually a revolver in good standing, they're going to have to take that into account. So if I had $40,000 on my credit cards and I kept them current, and they were making $20,000 a year on that, I'm going to have a different incremental value to that bank versus somebody who had $1,000 balance or a $3,000 balance, where I made a couple $100. So banks are going to have to kind of rethink what customer lifetime value is relative to people who are impacted.
And I mean, how do they, I mean, there's no way for them to gauge, somebody who was paying on time and had good customer value prior to Corona and what their current circumstances are to evaluate whether they are that same, customer after.
Right. Second thing is that understand that 1% of this country controlled 50% of the stock market. So the ultra affluent, if they chose to sell in this down market, they're going to be downgraded tremendously if they had to go to cash positions. And they hold a lot of assets now that are non-producing. So the whole notion of real estate in this country around second home ownership and all of that, I think that's all going to go away. So, I think what will take its place will be Airbnb. And that is really going to destroy second market marketplaces like Palm Springs, Colorado Rockies, Montana, vacations built in Florida. Think about all of the second home markets that are just not going to be viable. They're going to be depressed, So the rich are going to take it as well as the poor in this downturn. And then I think the third thing is that, and it's something that you and I have talked about, before this call, is that you're in a really good place, is that people are going to have to reimagine working from home. And not everybody's set up to do that. Now, it's interesting. I've been home-based since 93. My computers are my employees.
Yeah.
My databases. So all of my teams operate virtually. So from a executional standpoint, we haven't been impacted. The fact that we're already virtual. My CEO is in Tampa. I'm in California. Database groups are in Atlanta, New Jersey, San Clemente. So we've been very fortunate that we were already set up virtually.
Yeah.
But a lot of companies just aren't configured this way.
Right.
So you're going to have a tremendous boom, I see, in what you're doing, because everything is changing now around that reality. And so who gets retained and who doesn't get retained. And that's are going to be those people that are home-based and technologically savvy. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, for the people that weren't set up, I mean, we're a virtual team. We have been for a long time. But for the companies that weren't set up, that were scrambling to figure out how to make that work, do you think that's going to become the new normal for them? Or do you think they go back to going into the office or downsizing the office? I mean, are people going to be doing away with their office leases? What do you think that looks like?
Yeah. If I was WeWorks, I would be frightened right now. Because the fact is that now there's some benefits that I want to say to you, is that there's a very well-known senior bias towards employees, and that's going to go away when you work remote, because people don't really care what you look like. There's going to probably be less racial discrimination. So there's going to be some benefits that are going to come out of this, because hard segments from an employment standpoint at a home situation, that could very well change. So I actually saw a very nice pointed piece done by a recruiter saying that he thinks that this is really going to make skilled people more accessible in the marketplace, less accessible, rather than less accessible.
That's an interesting, positive point of view to consider.
Yeah, and he was saying, especially with the people with general disabilities, and they maybe actually have this ability to do that. I have somebody in my family who suffers from mental illness, and she has a teaching job through the state of New Mexico. They've made her a tele-employee now, and she's thriving.
Mm-hmm.
She's been able to manage her mental illness. She's been able to have a fulfilling career, and she does it from the safety of her home.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are just more comfortable in their home, in their own environment, that would maybe rise to be able to work from home rather than be in the office around a lot of people with maybe the anxieties that creates for them.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So how tell me how, you mentioned that, the rich are going to, some things are going to change for them as well. So how are the rich going to shift their buying power?
Well, think about this. And I was talking to one of my clients that's in the luxury goods thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that the rich aspire to has been literally shut down and taken away from them. So they aspire to have country club membership and to do that as on the basis of a social interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So think about yacht clubs, tennis clubs, golf clubs. They're basically impacted by this virus. Second thing is that they typically buy fashion and jewelry for galas. Those aren't going to be happening for a long time, because those are gatherings of 50 or more people. Your expensive car is basically parked. Maybe you're going out and doing midnight runs in your BMW, but the reality is that your cars are basically a useless commodity right now.
Mm-hmm.
Your second home, you really don't have free travel now between states as they bring states together. They're not encouraging you to cross state lines right now. So that's changed. Travel has basically been decimated.
Yeah.
I would imagine that that's one thing when the rich are able to re-engage. That's probably a sector that there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand. So I do see that. Think of all the luxury hotels right now that are shuttered.
Yeah.
Very high overhead. So the thing is that it's the whole notion of a luxury good now. Look at what you and I are wearing. I'm wearing a cotton golf shirt. That's my standard attire every day.
Yeah. I'm wearing pajama bottoms, so
that's good. Well, I'm wearing shorts, so
yeah.
But what I'm saying to you is that there's no need to dress up right now. I really feel like luxury brands are all but going to go away. They're not going to be able to survive.
Now, eventually, people are going to start eventually at some point, which we don't know when. You're going to be able to go to gatherings of 50 or more. You're going to be able to travel. But even once people can, how long do you think it will be before they actually really feel comfortable, or will it ever get back to the way it was? Or some things going to really shift where, buying luxury cars and going to these events is not, if they're able to find a way to, manage without those things, will they still feel the need for them when they can have them?
Well, I think I'm going to say it a different way to you, Colin. I think that there could be a few things that survive this. One is that people will take more time in home decorating. Mm-hmm. So because they realize that if you're going to be homebound, so I do see that some consumer electronics like TVs, smart TVs, that's going to be probably a segment that survives. Mm-hmm. Art, so things that you decorate, that might survive. But by and large, and I say this to you, is that the affluent people in this country are also more tied to an older age, and they're the ones that are most at risk.
Right.
And I really do believe that there isn't going to be a new normal. People are always going to think, what's out there that's going to get me now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you a very blunt question, and I want to be very respectful that I ask it, but I already know of 2 people that have died from the virus. One was a 34-year-old and another one was a 71-year-old.
Wow.
So just in my immediate circle, I've seen 2 deaths. And so the 34-year-old is the one that shook me up, because he's probably your age group.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't suspect that person would have been exposed and taken out so quickly. And he was one of the first casualties. It was actually nationally reported. He was one of the first deaths. But so I'm saying to you is that what's going to, I think, really dictate this is that we're a nation of 340 million people. We're going to see probably maybe 50,000 deaths when it's all said and done. I don't really know now. It's a very small percentage of the overall country, but this country is very connected right now. Mm-hmm. And how people relate to this is how they personally experience the dark side of this virus, which is the death that could come from this virus. And I say this too because they say there's a statistic about the flu kills X amount of people in a year. Mm-hmm. And I don't really remember knowing anybody in my life who's died from the flu. My experience over 61 years, I don't know of anybody who the flu has taken out. This thing is really a much different problem, because I'm actually seeing people that are really truly being impacted from a death perspective.
Wow. And there's also a lot of people that, don't know, maybe that aren't experiencing that don't have, there's a lot of different information that's floating around. So I think it's challenging for people to know, what to believe, what's true, what's fact, as far as, like when it was very happening early on, there was a lot of younger people were like, hey, if I get it, it's not a big deal. Where, myself from the very beginning, I was very cautious, because it's not just if I get it. Maybe if I get it, I'm okay. But who else do I give it to that might not be okay, right? Because I think the biggest concern is how, easy it is for other people to get it, right? So with the people that maybe don't have the experience of seeing the death and stuff like that, they just need to be more cautious of who they could maybe get it to. I think people are obviously not as careless now, but early on, there was a lot of people that were very careless and not taking this thing very seriously.
Yeah, I think, Colin, we should be blessed being in California, because we're the first state to shut down. So we're going to be the least impacted. Mm-hmm. In my personal situation, I have a son your age that lives up in the Bay Area. My wife was visiting him because I have a new grandson who's 7 months old, and she wanted to come up and visit him and had a scheduled time, and then they put her on lockdown. So I didn't see my wife for a month. She literally was in Oakland with my son. I have a daughter that lives about 10 minutes away from me, and I have 3 grandchildren by her. So it's really weird, and I say this too, that in the month that I was at home, I only saw my 3 grandchildren twice, had them come over and play in my yard just to have that experience. So I think that, for me anyway, the value that I place now on my children and my grandchildren and family time, that's all been restructured in terms of priority and value.
Yeah.
And I want to say this to you, and it sounds, I don't care about material stuff much anymore. And I think that there's going to be maybe a shift where I having been around my house, I was telling my wife, I said, the one thing I know I will never buy is an aquarium, because I felt like a fish just going window to window. and that
Mm-hmm.
was my fishbowl,
Yeah.
and and the things that I have inside this house, I don't really care so much. What really matters to me are the things that are outside this house, and that's my friendships and my family.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have, taken this opportunity to really deepen relationships and, have a more of an appreciation for their immediate family, and really bonded, during this time where we've been kind of forced to slow down. So there is some positives, that have come out of it, but I just think that, people forget easily, right? So when we are able to all go out again, it'll be interesting to see, if that mind shift stays or changes.
Yeah, and I think that you're going to see that quality of the experience is going to be different too. I was telling somebody this the other day. Maybe I don't take my grandkids to Disneyland because that's where people meet en masse.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly want to take them down to the local skate park and watch them skate. So maybe more personal, local experiences, smaller scale, might be petting zoo, might be the pony ride.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how people value things, whether it's going to go more to a local, small, intimate scale versus mass tourist scale.
Which would be a huge change. I mean, I think that people are going to be nervous to travel anywhere, at least for a while, especially to another country.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think that people realize that. There will be people that will be opportunistic and take advantage of specials. I have a friend in advertising. His name is Hugh. He's an amazing guy. He always picks vacations, places that are hit with natural disasters.
Oh, wow.
So he'll find the 7-star hotel that's in the Caribbean where the island just got hit by a hurricane, and they're just thankful to get one person to show up, and he'll be pampered for 2 weeks. He'll have like all 150 employees, waiting on him by the pool. This is how this guy travels. I'm sure that he's probably right now got his bucket list of all the places he's always wanted to go.
You can go anywhere now and get that type of treatment.
Yeah, for $60 a night.
Right.
So, like I said, there probably are going to be opportunistic travelers, but I don't see it coming back. I really don't.
Well, it's going to take a long time of healing and forgetting and, building up the courage to take, these things that we'll now consider high risk.
Well, think about it is that if I want to travel with my family, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to an Airbnb.
Yeah.
I'm going to have much more control of that environment than being in a hotel and being on an airplane.
And I mean, even just wearing masks and gloves, is that going to be, if you go around more than, X amount of people, is that going to be the way of going out, wearing masks and gloves?
I don't know. So you're on the South Bay, correct?
Yeah.
So where do you reside? Yeah.
So my office is in El Segundo, and then I live right on the other side of the airport in Westchester.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, it would be very interesting to see when they open up the beaches.
Yeah.
In your neighborhood. I live in Laguna Hills, very close to Laguna Beach, and it'll be very interesting. I see a lot more people will start enjoying the local things near them.
Yeah. I mean, I have to admit, we live close enough to the beach, but we definitely take it for granted and don't go visit as much as we probably could or should. And now it'll probably be something that we can do and feel safe, right?
Yeah. So I think, like I said, it's all going to go to very local, very intimate. I don't think it's going to go the other way. Right. And like I said, I think it will be very interesting let's meet up again in 6 months and see where the bankruptcies lie. It's going to be with the big box retailers. They're not going to survive. Any of the big property companies that are holding these malls, they're not going to survive. Upscale hotels, large scale resorts, they're not going to survive. I really do believe that. I hate to be, so negative, but I just think there's a reality that values are going to change.
Yeah. And a lot of people probably don't want to face that reality yet, right? Is really what it is. We're going to take a quick break just to tell you what we do here at Monster VoIP. We help companies save 30 to 50% off their current business phone bill while providing them more value and more features. If you'd like to learn more, you can text us at 424-378-6966. Richard, can you tell us a little bit about what you think the economic impacts of the coronavirus and what marketers can do to counterbalance that?
So let's talk about your space, which I find most interesting. So everybody is now going home. They're being enabled to use your products now for the first time. God bless you. You're in a great position. What's going to happen now is that you're going to have to be concise storytellers. You're going to have this ability to deliver a message out to somebody who's of economic buying significance to where they say, yes, I want to engage. It's probably going to be a Zoom meeting like we're doing, probably no more than 20 minutes. Let's talk. What is my story? What is my product? And then decisions are going to be made. So a lot of this face-to-face sales process is going to just be eliminated. It's going to be coffee and steak knives and Cadillacs will go to closers, right? So if you have somebody who's dynamic on a video, who can converse, great storyteller, they're going to be very successful in this environment.
Yeah, I had somebody ask me yesterday for a meeting, a sales meeting. They're obviously trying to sell me something, and he said, can we meet for a virtual coffee? And I thought that was pretty clever. So I was like, yeah, sure.
One of the things that I've been doing on all my meetings is that, as a joke, is that a week ago I wore a sombrero, and now for the client that I'm dealing with, every time we get together, everybody tries to wow somebody with the next hat.
Oh, okay. That's very cool.
So, but what I'm saying to you is that I think that you're very well positioned. What we can do at Rytepath is that we can track 150 million phones on where they've been. A lot of check information around previous business conferences. So if you can give me the venue and you can give me the location, we have the ability to track down to a phone, and then associated with the phone, we have the private email. So we have this ability to basically locate people. I would imagine that Microsoft is probably very happy to have bought LinkedIn because this is going to be a very valuable asset now. The navigator tools that are in there are going to be essential for people to do business now and to locate people. But there's going to be a huge shift, and it's going to benefit your industry. Where we could help you is that if any client is looking to re-engage with people that are known attendees, we're doing that right now for our clients. One of our clients is a large investor group in the cannabis space. We're helping them identify people that go to Basinger and MJ BizCon conferences in Vegas. They had 30,000 attendees. So we're helping them build this database of prior visitors.
Now, how far back does your database go? Like events, right? Because now there's not going to be any events, at least for a year, right? So how far back is your database? Like, events 1, 2, like how many years back is it where you can track the people that were at those events?
So on Facebook, it's historic. So it goes back through the history of somebody liking that event. And then on a digital basis, we can go back 2 to 6 months.
Oh, okay. So for the digital, it's really events that have happened. Once there's no events for 6 months plus, then what?
It's going to go away. So that now's the time to harvest.
Right. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a shame, and I say this to you, but it's just going to be a fact of life. We worked with the eSports, and we actually had a very interesting device. It looks like an airport scanner, and what it allowed children to do is they could enter the scanner, and it would make a complete video game avatar that they could then import into 3 games. Mm-hmm. So it debuted at the NBA All-Star game. And so you could be avatars of basketball players, mm-hmm. and then they could play one of 3 basketball-oriented games. We were going to take it to 20 events this year. All of them been canceled. Comic-Con, E3, every single gaming thing. So, people on that side, they're not expecting anything to happen until Q4 at the earliest.
Mm. And you say eSports is really booming now with people at home, right?
Yes, we're seeing 60 to 70 million people engaging with titles and influencers now on a monthly basis, way up.
And what was it previously?
40 to 60. It's running probably 60 to 80 million.
Wow.
So just to give you a number, Amazon site, I think, got 300 million hours booked this last month. So on Twitch Studio, I think it's gone up to 300 million hours now in terms of play.
Wow.
Really hard to imagine.
Yeah, I mean, what else can people do for entertainment, right?
Yeah.
From home. I mean, streaming, eSports, gaming.
So it's very interesting is my wife has a good friend that is a quilt designer. Mm-hmm. And so she makes the patterns for ladies to basically stay at home and sew and make quilts. Her business is up 200%. Huh. So anything, and trust me when I say this, I'm very youthful in my orientation. I have grandsons that are 11 and 10, and we're always having eSports conversations on who's the greatest, what's the newest game, what are they into. So I stay pretty current on that. But I came of a generation that was used to occupying their time playing Monopoly and board games. And it's interesting is that my kids that are in their 30s are now asking, hey, do we still have that Monopoly game in the closet? Yeah. Hey, do we still have the game of life? Right. So it's going to be really interesting. It's like there's going to be some nostalgic things that are actually going to probably do really well, like all the old board games, card games.
Right, yeah. I have 3 kids at home, and I have 18 months, 4 and 5, and my 4 and 5-year-old are just every day I come home and they've got 3 or 4 different amazing Lego creations that they've built for me. And
then, sadly in social distancing. Go ahead. Carl.
Yeah. And so then on the weekend, they want me to build with them, and I actually really enjoy it.
I was going to say is with social distancing, man, Legos has got to be going through the roof.
Yeah.
It's one of the most creative things that were ever invented. That is, you can make whatever you want to make on a daily basis. Right.
Yeah. Every day they build them, and then every day at the end of the day they tear them down so that they can build something new the next day because they want to use those, those pieces. So they build them and then tear them down and then build something new the next day.
Yeah. So I think that these things around personal entertainment, they're going to be super valuable. It's going to go into eSports, computer gaming, board gaming, reality. All of these things I think are going to benefit. What I don't think will survive this, to be honest with you, is organized sports. And I say this is that your kids will probably find going to a baseball game lame when they can just stay home and play Fortnite.
Well, even, how long is it going to take for people even to feel comfortable going into a gathering of that size?
That's what I'm saying. So
not only will they maybe find it boring or something like that, it's going to take time for people to even feel comfortable to do that.
I just saw that Germany is going to have attendee-less games, and they're not going to allow any events to take place through August 31st.
Wow. So,
that's a new reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say this to you in the best possible way. I'm quite a bit older than you, but for me, aspirationally, I like the fact that I wake up and I don't see cars on the road. I hear songbirds in my yard. The air is clean. Actually, it's crisp. Yeah. I live close to the beach, so the water coming off the ocean and the air, just amazing.
Yeah.
I've never experienced this.
Yeah.
I go on walks and I see so much wildlife coming out of the open spaces now and kind of retaking our suburbs. It's really interesting. I've seen hawks, snakes, coyotes. It's been really unusual to see so much wildlife now out in the open. And I'm seeing these things. So it's not all bad.
Yeah. One of the things that I find myself enjoying is usually with 3 kids and we have pretty busy lives and we're usually always doing something and, we always feel kind of rushed to get one thing done to get to the next. Like it's kind of nice doing things at home, not feeling like I have to be anywhere, go anywhere, or I just have all the time to enjoy my family and not rush to do the next thing.
Yeah. So I think that, through all of this, Colin, there's going to be certain things that are going to take precedence that people aren't going to want to go back to.
Yeah.
And, I'm hoping that, country maybe gets serious about electrical cars. Maybe we don't need all this petroleum. Maybe we can start working on alternative fuels. If we're going to stay at home, I think solar paneling and solar power maybe take over. So there's going to be a lot of clean environmental initiatives that I think that are going to come out of this that are going to be very, very positive.
Yeah. Well, we are just about out of time. Richard, thanks so much for your time and welcome to the Monster Chats family. Before I let you go, please tell us where people can find you online or how they can find out more information about your company.
Yeah, so we spell our company a particular way. It's RYTEPATH. So it's Rytepath. And you can reach me at Richard, RICHARD .Birt, BIRT, at Rytepath, RYTEPATH.com.
Awesome. Well, Richard, thanks so much for your time. You are the godfather of big data, and we really appreciate you coming and sharing your thoughts on what's the current situation. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, share, and we're open to hearing your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. The show is all about you. And thanks so much, Richard.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Monster Chats, presented by Monster VoIP, where we share the tools, methods, and best practices that business leaders use to build new connections, strengthen relationships, and impact sales in organizations of all shapes and sizes. If you have any questions from today's show and want to reach us directly, please text your question to 424-378-6966.